So our topic today is the 5 invaders we all have that put mega amounts of stress on our immune system and what you can do about it. So I'm going to ask a question. What's the first thing that you think of when you hear about the immune system? To me, when I was in nursing school and we talked about it, it's somewhat mysterious to me. When you can't see it, it's not something that you can feel. Like when I was learning about the organs and glands of the body, I could see the human body, I could see the liver, etc. But it just kind of felt almost like evasive and somewhat invisible. And I find when I can't see something and really understand it, it doesn't quite have as much meaning to me, and it's harder for me to really grasp the concept. So again, my goal is I want you to have really an understanding of what the immune system is, know the amazing power it has of what it's trying to do to support you, and then what you can do to support the immune system back. So where and exactly what is the immune system? When I think about the immune system, I think a good defense is a good offense, which translates into a strong immune system, basically to ward off any potential invaders that might come across your path. So here's the immune system, and what I think the takeaway that might be the easiest for everybody is think of your immune system as a network. Okay, it's a network of organs, tissues, and cells, and it's working on your behalf to identify and eliminate any harmful pathogens and toxins that might come across you that your body has a hard time to process and to eliminate. So if you really break the immune system down, it consists of your adenoids. Now, a lot of people had their tonsils and adenoids removed at a young age. Your thymus, which is like in the middle of your chest. You've got lymphoid tissue. You see all like the purple, all of these little dots everywhere. That makes up your entire lymphatic system. And I like to think about the lymphatics as your garbage collectors. We take things in every day. We have to process them and eliminate them. So that's why I call them the garbage collectors. We take crap in, we have to get rid of crap. So it's a vital function to have that lymphoid tissue really processing and functioning well and not being congested. You've got bone marrow. You've got your spleen. Now your intestines, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but within your gut, you've got, they call them Peyer's patches. What they're doing is specifically monitoring and supporting your immune system, and the appendix. Now I know many people have had their appendix removed. They've had their tonsils removed. So some research is saying that that does impact the immune system. There's other research saying, oh, it has no impact at all. So we're not going to really discuss it or argue about it, but just know there are viewpoints on both sides. But even if you don't have an appendix, you don't have tonsils, you still can really have a very strong immune system. All right, so simplistically, and I'm going to say this several times, that the primary job of your immune system is to protect you. It's really responsible for distinguishing between self and basically not self. It's supporting and defending the parts that it perceives as you, your cells, your tissues and organs, and blocks or basically attaches and removes anything that it perceives as not being you. It's like going into a house and entering like through a hole. Now I call them barrier breaches, and they can be in many locations, but commonly we find them in our guts. Like when people have leaky gut, the intestinal lining gets thin and starts to break down. Your lungs, your nose, endothelial tissue like within your cardiac system, and the blood-brain barrier. So basically, when your body senses a foreign substance, now in medicine it's called an antigen, and that's not really important, but when your body sees something that it doesn't recognize, your immune system wakes up and says, oh, let's go see what this is, check it out, and potentially eliminate it. So I want you to understand there's 3 parts to your immune system. And the first part's called the innate, and we're all born with that. It's our skin, our hair, our organs, our tissues, even our eyelashes, right? Our sweat and our tears, all those have immune abilities to protect us. Like when we get something in our eye, what happens? Those fluids in your eye, your eye starts to water. Well, that's actually a protective mechanism to help remove whatever might have gotten into your body. If you want to get more scientific, for people that are into medicine or science, that's where your basophils come in, your eosinophils, your neutrophils, your mast cells, all those kinds of cells. So we can draw those things on a blood test, and we can look for elevations or decreases. And specifically, it can actually give us some information, like if you have a high eosinophil ratio, that can be an indication of possibly having parasites. So you can look at some of those specific parts of the innate immune system on a blood test. They can give you different ideas, perhaps, at where you should look if you're having a chronic health issue. So the second part of the immune system is called the adaptive. Now, about 60% of your adaptive immune system actually lives within your gut and specifically in your small intestine. And it carries specific cells, your T and B cells, that we're going to talk about later. The last part of your immune system, I don't think gets a lot of attention. I don't think people really talk about it much. It's called your complement immune system. And I like to think of it basically like landmines that are found throughout your body that when attached to, then they almost cause like a little mini explosion. So we'll talk about that a little bit later too. Okay, so that's three parts to your immune system: your innate, your adaptive, and when needed, your complement. All right, so again, in simplistic terms, as I mentioned earlier, just remember your immune system is here to protect you. So a good defense is a good offense, which then translates into a strong, healthy immune system to potentially ward off any invaders. Okay, so we're going to move into the immune system itself, of how it actually functions. And again, I put this into like a story. So I want you to think about your body basically like a house, okay? And someone's going to try to enter your house through basically some kind of an opening. Again, I call them barrier breaches, and they can be in many locations. You know, your intestines, again, maybe you have leaky gut, you've had stress for a long time. That's one opening. Your lungs, basically your nose, right? All your nasal mucosa, things that we find irritating, it makes us sneeze, right? That becomes like an irritant. So the nose is a huge way. Actually, your eyes too. We can actually get things into our eyes, and that's a potential opening. And obviously your blood-brain barrier is another one. Okay, so these invaders, they enter through your body through one of those barriers, okay? And it goes into a tissue. And then in the medical field, we call it a macrophage or dendritic cell. Not really important, but just know that you've got now some kind of invader that's come through an opening in your body. It's setting into one of your tissues. And this basically is the alarm clock that calls on the innate immune system to go to work. So I call these basically first responders. You've got this. It can be a pathogen, it could be a toxin. Something has entered your body and it's sitting somewhere in a tissue, an organ, or gland. The innate immune system gets the alarm, hey, I'm over here. The first responders, I call them, it's like our security guards. And they go out and they find the bad guys. Now, again, in the medical world, we just call them macrophages, okay? But again, they're hiding somewhere in your body's tissues. And they have the potential to wrap up that invader, creating an antigen that's basically acted like a burglar alarm. And typically, this happens within just a few hours of basically seeing some kind of burglar within your body. Now, if the invader is eliminated or just basically removed from your body, now again, how are you going to let go of it? You're going to pee it out, you're going to poop it out, sweat it out, or breathe it out. Those are the basic ways that your body eliminates toxins and even pathogens. But if that invader is not removed by the innate immune system, then that system realizes, oh, I've got to call on my colleagues. And that's when it calls out for the adaptive immune system, because that's where I call them the special forces live. And that's where our T and B cells live. So when this adaptive part of the immune system gets called on, you've got basically a variety of different cells. And I'm not gonna talk about all of them, but the highlights really are your T and B cells. You've got T helper cells, also called cytokines. Those are kind of woken up and called to work. If you've got any circulating cytotoxic T cells, along with natural killer cells, all of these types of cells are now activated. They go out, flow around your bloodstream, organs and glands, find and hunt down those potential imposters. Now, while all this is happening, there really is basically a control center. So back at the police station, I call it, you've got another kind of T cell that's basically called a regulatory cell, that's monitoring the scene to be sure that there's enough T helper cells that are on the case. Now, I don't want to get too scientific about it, but the basic premise is the police station's also monitoring the suppressor cells, because you don't want these T helper cells to keep going over and over and over again, because once they've got the pathogen or the invader, those helper cells then need to basically stop working. And that's the job of the T suppressor cells. So there's a balance there, right? The helper cells are going to work along with their other T helper cells. The suppressor cells say, okay, the immune action is done. The intruder is disarmed. Now let's everybody stop working. This conversation basically goes on. And at some point, those T suppressor cells have to step in. Now, if they don't, and this cycle keeps continuing, that's when we really run the risk for autoimmunity. Now, autoimmunity really is an entirely different conversation that we could have a whole different webinar on. But I know many people have types of autoimmune in the body. So I just want to make mention of it, but I've made it rather simplistic to understand an autoimmune issue. But basically, that's really what's happening. The body doesn't understand the suppressor cells. You just step in, the helper cells are still overreacting. All right, now these T helper cells, they also call out their friends. I call them the detective B cells. Well, these detective B cells create antibodies. They can attach to the intruder again, but they put all the information that they've learned about the intruder basically in a memory bank that allows the natural killer cells and cytotoxic T cells to become efficient at destroying that burglar if it ever tries to come around again. So basically, you are creating memories. Now, again, it's a whole different conversation about antibacterial soaps and actually getting different viruses and getting sick. When I grew up, I ate dirt. I played outside all the time. And today, that's not happening quite as much. And again, there's different philosophies about this. But I am of the belief that I want those antibodies to create some memories for me. So when I do see some familiar things, my immune system knows what to do. Now, even if it hasn't seen some of these things, I still feel confident that my immune system can do the job, but this is just one job that these B cells and T helper cells can do for your body. Excuse me. Now, again, earlier I mentioned the complement system. I think of these as like landmines. Basically what they are, they're proteins. They're all over your body, and they're just waiting to be activated. Basically, they kind of bump into something. They start to stick together. They become coated in a way that almost like a little mini explosion. And that's how they destroy any invaders or pathogens. Now, again, this part of the immune system isn't always activated. It just kind of hangs out in the background if ever needed, but it is very commonly seen and activated with autoimmune issues. So when I draw lab tests for clients and I do a complement system lab evaluation, these sometimes come back high, which then tells us there's some kind of autoimmune issue going on. Now let's talk about the immune system in of itself. And again, these things are not things that you see, okay? But these are different ways. There's 4 different ways basically that things are happening in the body. Your immune system either is having an over response to external stimuli. So examples like you're overreacting to environmental stimuli such as EMF, food allergies. I'm a huge component of not having things in your cars like those silly air fresheners, all the Febreze products, you know, spraying your body, spraying your home, all those things over time, because we have so much stress in our lives, your immune system can start becoming overreactive to those types of things. You can also have an under response to external stimuli. So like the immune system is like kind of slacking down in its job of seeing bugs, and it just increases your susceptibility to viruses, bacteria, parasites, and fungus and other infections that typically your immune system could take care of. Okay, so that's the external stimuli. Then we've got, again, the over-under to the internal stimuli. So the over-response to the internal is basically like being misguided. It's a confused immune system that starts to beat up healthy organs and tissues, creating that autoimmune kind of scenario I mentioned earlier, like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, etc. So there's a lot of miscommunication there. There's a misunderstanding within the messaging between the brain and the immune system. And then we have an under response to internal stimuli. So if the immune system here fails to recognize and clear out irregular cells, those cells can eventually grow and multiply. We did things like have a heavy body toxicity and even cancers. You know, again, we take crap in every single day. Our body has to process it. So the immune system is a big part of seeing those types of things. And that's why getting good sleep, drinking good water, exercising, those things help to move and support that immune system. We're going to get to that later. I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself. But to understand that the immune system oftentimes can be unresponsive. That might see these irregular things, but doesn't really know what to do. And honestly, the research shows we all have cancer cells in our body, but they're just not activated. So we all carry basically like this soup of different types of things, but in certain people, different things are activated. So the question becomes, why is it activated in one person and not the other? And your immune system is part of understanding that whole picture. Okay, now remember one of my first slides, I talked about the adaptive immune system. And I said 60% of it is actually in your small intestine. So I want to talk just for a few minutes about the importance. I know it's become more of a hot topic the last several years than it ever used to be, about your microbiome and balancing your good and bad bacteria. So this is going to be kind of along that topic. So the small intestine is the epicenter of your adaptive immune system. You've got billions of healthy bacterial organisms that kill off invading bacteria and other bugs, help to digest food and help with hormone and even fat digestion. So a healthy person has about 3 pounds and 500 different species of good bacteria flora. I kind of compare it to like having black topsoil. It's got rich compost and it swarms with earthworms. So your gut almost is like a garden. So you really want to tend to that garden to be sure that it stays flourished, it doesn't dry out, has plenty of different kinds basically of compost and earthworms. So basically, depending on your diet, your exercise, your toxicity levels within the body and their cells, and your stress levels, then that body's flora can be diminished. And again, this is what I just said, unfortunately. Think of the crumbly, dry, nutrient-depleted dirt, right? But think of it like your cells. Like if we don't drink enough water, your cells in our bodies are almost, different opinions, but about 80% water. So how well do those cells function if they're all dried out? It's basically like leather. Nothing's going to function well like that. It's the same type of thing within your microbiome, right? You get dry, crumbly dirt or a garden, it's not going to be able to support you as much as having a good, plentiful, nourished soil. Now, in good soil, even a weak plant has a chance to live. But in poor soil, even a strong plant may not survive and thrive. So I want to mention the GALT. Some of you might be familiar with this, some of you may not, but I kind of think about the GALT as another special security guard. And it's associated with your lymphoid tissue. It's called GALT that lies underneath the lining of your intestinal tract. And it has certain parts in it called Peyer's patches. And basically what it's doing is kind of surveying everything that kind of comes across the digestive tract. And it's like an identifier. Are you a friend or are you a foe? And depending on what it recognizes, it sends orders for antibodies and other immune responses as needed to address the issue. So if you're a friend, it might create an antibody. So next time it sees it, it might not cause any kind of reactivity. If it sees it as a foe, then it's got to create some kind of response to address that and try to push that invader through the gut so it doesn't become like a long-term parasite, a fungal infection, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, those types of things. Now this barrier is crucial. And if the soft mucus barrier is compromised and weakened, it often leads to leaky gut. Leaky gut has become a very popular term, I think, over the last many years. So this is kind of what it's referring to. You've got this protective lining in your gut. And through stresses, food toxicities, it's usually a combination of factors, then that lining can start to become leaky. And it goes into your bloodstream and creating a whole bunch of other problems. So I want to mention just 4 things as ways to strengthen, how to strengthen that part of your gut that you really can't see. Now, obviously avoid allergens and known irritants the best you can. Not everybody realizes that they might have a food allergy to, I've seen clients allergic to blueberries. You know, we think of healthy foods, but sometimes if you've got an underlying gut infection, underlying stress, etc., even healthy foods, you can become reactive to. So I don't want to give too much power to foods. I think we do that sometimes. Your body is an amazing machine. So to love your food, to eat in a calm setting, those things really can have a big impact on actually your body seeing things as allergens and actually irritants. The second one, another way the body wants those vitamins and minerals, particularly zinc and vitamin C. Now, I'm a big fan of liquids. I think the body absorbs them better with all the stresses we have to live with. So if I can find a liquid multivitamin, if I can find liquid trace minerals, then I'm usually a bigger fan of those. Obviously, eating whole plant foods and fibers, you kind of see that everywhere. I think on any website you ever read, they're suggesting eating whole plant foods and fibers. And then chewing your food well. I think we miss out on this a lot. Are you eating what? Are you chewing while you're standing? Are you watching TV while you're eating? Are you driving? I think we really underestimate the power of chewing our food. I think the books say, what, like 20 times? Well, that seems a little ridiculous to me. But if you actually pay attention during one of your meals, okay, how much am I really chewing my food? I think you might be unpleasantly surprised to realize that, yeah, I'm not really chewing my food that great. Then those bigger chunks of food go through the stomach. You've got to have that hydrochloric acid then to break that food down. Goes into the small intestine, and it's just harder to absorb and actually create energy when you've got bigger chunks of food. All right, so the title of our topic today was the intruders. So let's actually go to the intruder section. So what actually impacts the immune system? And talk about these. So the first one is going to be stress, and stress comes in so many different forms. You know, it can come in bodily stress. It can come through mind stress. And we live in crazy times right now. I think we all have so much more stress than we did even like 2 years ago. So we can't change the current times. What we can do is make sure that we're aware of how well we're taking care of ourselves and our families. Just to really help you understand the impact of stress, you know, we have 2 pea-sized adrenal glands that sit above our kidneys. And their responsibility is to handle all the stress in your life. Well, they get tired. You know, when I used to do adrenal stress kits, I typically wouldn't see various abnormal levels until, you know, we were in like our 40s and 50s. Well, now I'm seeing it in college students, even high school students. The stress levels have just escalated so much over the past many years, and particularly during these times. And it's not something that we can see. So I find when we as people can't see something, it's harder to relate to it. But if we look at hormones, our hormones is actually a hierarchy, and cortisol, our stress hormone, is the most powerful hormone in the entire body. It can wreak havoc on any organ, gland, and tissue in the mind and the body. So I think, in my opinion, what I usually do in my clinic is I like to look at your cortisol levels over 24 hours. Do a 24-hour cycle of cortisol. Now, working with Healing Solutions, we can also utilize the muscle testing to find out if there's adrenal insufficiency, etc. And typically in any issue, there's some component of stress. So I'm going to really encourage you to look at stress. What modalities do you have to handle your own stress? The mind can be positive or it can be negative. And research shows us that we have almost 60,000 thoughts every single day, and the majority of them are negative. So I'm going to encourage you to try this experiment. On any one day, pick a day and become an observer to the thoughts in your mind. When I did this, I was petrified, realizing what a negative mind state that I'd had for so long. It's a challenge. It really is to work with your mind and create a mind frame that's positive. But just having an awareness of it and realizing of the concepts, the negativity that's going through your mind does allow you to break the pattern. Even just saying stop. Express gratitude for someone, something in your life that day will stop that cortisol pattern and help you to form more of a positive mind frame. So I don't want to over talk about stress, but I want you to really realize the impact it can have. And I know many people in my clinic say, well, I just have stress. No, I get it, we all do, but you have to find ways that resonate with you, that you can help your stress levels. Whether it's exercising, it's meditating, we all have different ways that your body will feel better from releasing stress. But you have to find a couple of ways to do it. Okay, the second one is pathogens. They can come in the form of viral, bacterial, fungus, parasites. What I find interesting over the many years are some European studies that have found that cardiac disease actually started with viruses. And viruses, and even a lot of bacteria, even fungal, you can't see them. In traditional medicine, you can't test for them. And again, I think it's hard for us as humans, if we have to see something and feel it for it to really validate it. And these little pathogens can be so evasive. They can be so hard to find. That again, that's one more, I guess, encouragement to use Healing Solutions, is because there are frequencies that can be identified with these pathogens to identify them and help your body to eliminate them. So unfortunately, I think people will live with these pathogens for years. They never really get identified. And once they live there, then basically I call them open doors. Then other ones can start coming in too. And your digestive system is typically one of the first open doors for pathogens. And it usually starts in your mouth through your oral microbiome. And then we swallow it, it goes to your stomach. We have decreased hydrochloric acid levels frequently. Then that's also another invitation for these viruses, bacteria, and fungus to grow. As I just mentioned, if we don't chew our food well, our food now is in larger chunks within our guts, and it takes longer to assimilate and break those food particles down. And what that does, the longer something sits, then it tends to start fermenting and rot, which then again invites more viruses, bacteria, and funguses to grow. So it's nothing to be afraid of, but it's just to acknowledge that pathogens can be very secretive. They're very powerful. And if we don't identify them through either using Healing Solutions, there are some functional medicine lab testing. I know that I do some of those that they can identify. Now there's so many different viruses, bacteria, pathogens, etc., that we don't even know about. But typically, on some of the lab testing, even muscle testing, when we find some pathogens, there are typically going to be many more of them. So it's by finding where they're at, and then what is it that your body wants to utilize to help eliminate them. It can be antimicrobial, some kind of detoxifying product, but as long as we know where they are and basically kind of what class they are, your body has the ability to release them. It's just having an understanding of We have them. We have to identify basically what they are and what your body wants to utilize to release them. The third intruder is dysbiosis. And again, there's so much attention now on the microbiome in the gut. There's some good functional medicine lab testing to where we can identify the good bacteria, the bad bacteria, identify the levels and where they might be balanced or imbalanced. So this is a very powerful tool. I think most people to some degree have a certain level of dysbiosis. So then we'll take the fermented vegetable juices, we'll eat all fermented products, we'll do so many probiotics. And one thing I'm going to say about the probiotics, I think a lot of people, a lot of companies are really pushing products that say, oh, here I've got this many billion, this many million. And what we've learned over the years, it's not so much how many, it's the variety. Think back to the garden. You want a variety in your garden to really grow well. You don't need a billion of this and a billion of that. So that's just one thing I want to say, just have an awareness about when you're trying to populate your gut in good ways. Now, the fourth intruder is the environment. EMF has been a big thing for people. Over the years, we are becoming more exposed to EMF on a daily basis. We can't hide from it. So with our computers and our phones, etc., all of those things, and there are a lot of good products now. There's lots of good strategies for people to turn your EMF off. When you get home, you turn off all your computers, you've got some protective devices. You don't watch TV, you don't watch your computers, it's got the blue screens, etc. There's so much stuff out there. So be aware of how those things might be affecting you, how much time you spend in front of them. A lot of people work in front of a computer from 9 to 5. I mean, they can't get away from it. But little things like I bought little tabs to put on my computer screens. So I have some at work and some at home. They're just little round little circles basically that help to take away that energy from coming out at me all the time. I have one on my phone. So it's lots of little things that you can do. Now I'm going to use my computer, but I can still use some protective devices that will help to minimize the stress that it might be putting on my body. And then other pollutants in our environment. Again, we can talk all day long about this stuff, but we're not going to get away from them. And I don't want people to become afraid of them, because if we realize how powerful our bodies are, we really can live in harmony with all things. So we just have to be in balance with things. And I think some of environmental issues are created because we are afraid. And there are people write articles, etc., about how powerful these things are, but I want us to realize how powerful you are, how powerful your mind and body is. So not to be ignorant, but to acknowledge these issues, but also realize if you can give yourself some good self-care, use some good strategies, that you can live in balance with all things, but just to have an awareness of these things. And the last intruder is poor sleep or lack thereof. I think sleep is one thing that again, is a little bit minimized by most people. When I talk to clients to talk about sleep, I ask them, what time do you go to bed at night? Do you wake up or have trouble staying asleep? And in the morning when you get up, what time do you get up and do you feel rested? So the answers to those questions really can help me to see whether are you really getting into those deep sleep patterns? Because you have to have sleep in order to rejuvenate and to heal. That's what your body's doing at night. And unfortunately for many people, we're very busy. And so there's so many things to do that people don't often get to sleep very early. There's a lot of people, this is going to tie back to number one, into stress. When our adrenal glands are stressed out, it's common for people to actually feel more energized in the evening time, which makes them then want to stay up into the night hours, which is really the most important time to be asleep. So it takes some work to identify the patterns and then work to actually eliminate that pattern and create more of a harmonious and pattern to where, yeah, I feel tired, I want to go to bed at night. So the most powerful hours to sleep are from 10 p.m. at night to 2 in the morning. For whatever reason, your body's getting double the amount of healing power between those hours. So ask yourself, am I in bed and sleep by 10 o'clock? Do I sleep, through the night? So these might be goals. If I've got someone who doesn't go to bed till 1 o'clock in the morning, we come to an agreement. We say, okay, what sounds reasonable to you? And if it's going to bed at midnight, that's what we do for the next 3 months. Once we've mastered that, then we say, okay, let's make it 11 o'clock. Some clients, they'll go to bed and they'll take a book with them. Like, well, I can't possibly go to sleep that early. Okay, I understand. We can train your mind and body to create a new pattern. So if you go to bed and you just relax and you read a book, we can start to retrain your body to start relaxing to go to sleep earlier. Now, the cortisol pattern is a big issue. So if that pattern is not addressed, it's going to be really hard to accomplish good sleep through the night. A lot of stresses, a lot of emotions, even toxins, obviously can affect your sleep. So just be aware that that is one huge part of helping your body's immune system. Okay, so those are the 5 intruders. We've got stress in so many forms. We've got pathogens, the viruses, bacteria, funguses, parasites. We've got the dysbiosis, just the imbalance within our own digestive system. We've got the environment. It comes to us in so many ways, so EMF, pollutants, etc. We've got the poor sleep or lack thereof. Okay, so I'm going to give everybody a code. And what this code is, we created this to help release the stresses, all the stresses we just mentioned on the entire immune system. So I will read this code twice through. So if you don't get it the first time, it's okay, I'll read it twice. So I'll just wait a couple of seconds in case people don't have paper and pencil. Go ahead and grab those. Give everybody just a few more seconds just in case they're not ready. I'll jot this code down for you. Okay, here we go. So the code is SHIFLFG50 SHG50 SHEBE G50 SHIFOE AC9G UN SHUN chakra pattern 2 times 2. Okay, I'm going to read it one more time. SHIFLFG50 SHG50 SHEBE G50 SHIFOE AC9G UN SHUN chakra pattern 2 times 2. So you can read that, honestly, as many times a day as you want to, but that will help to release the stresses on your immune system that we just talked about. Okay, so let's talk now about how to have a positive impact on your immune system. Number one, I kind of got ahead of myself because we talked about getting enough sleep. Sleep and immunity are so closely tied together. We talked about the 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Your body heals and rejuvenates at night. You've got to get into that deep sleep. Number 2 is whole foods and water. Water, I mentioned earlier about having the dry cells. On average, you should drink about 2 quarts of water a day. I suggest that you drink it away from meals. There's different philosophies on this, but one philosophy is that you drink too much water or liquid with a meal, it dilutes your digestive enzymes. So I just suggest that you drink most of your water away from meal times. Whole foods, obviously, there's so many different ways to eat, but especially during these stressful times, try to get your fruits, vegetables, and your proteins in. And I tell people, they stress out because I'm going to go eat some sugar. I don't think there's anything wrong with sugar. If you're going to go to a birthday party in the next couple of weeks, if you feel guilty about it and beat yourself up, it's going to have a negative impact on you. So I try to tell people, I'm going to this birthday party. So you know what? Have a piece of cake and make it the best piece of cake that you've had in years and enjoy that piece of cake. Because when you're done, you're going to come home, you're going to have a healthy dinner. So just be aware of your emotions around the foods that you choose to eat. Now, number 3 is the stress relief strategies. We talked about these. Everyone resonates with different types of modalities. And I think it's important to have at least 2 that you can do. I think movement of some kind is one of the best ways. Some people run, some people swim, some people walk. It doesn't really matter what kind of movement that you have, but you need some kind of movement. Some people use yoga, Tai Chi. It doesn't have to be severe. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to go do an Ironman today. It just has to be some movement. You can do 30 minutes of walking. As long as you're not on your phone, listening to something, just walking. So identify 1 or 2 stress relief strategies that you resonate with. If your sister or your friend loves running and you hate running, well, don't run. You have to find what you like, especially now during the hot summer. In most places, at least, biking, just something outside. Another strategy I like is get out in nature. You can do movement out in nature or just walk out in nature. Just sit outside in nature and listen to the trees, listen to the birds. You can do grounding outside. If it's okay, you can take your shoes and socks off and walk through the grass. And that has a very great connecting power to Mother Earth. So those types of things. I read something recently it was from an Indian tribe, and they were talking about different stress relief techniques. And their author said, when you feel stressed and you feel so overwhelmed, it's hard to ground yourself and do something to feel better. He said, walk outside and touch a tree. That tree is firmly grounded into Mother Nature. That alone, that simplistic thing, can actually help you to break that cycle your mind might be in from feeling stressed. All right, again, never underestimate the power of stress. There was a great study in the Journal of the Interferon and Cytokine Research that followed first-year med students. And they were looking at their production of immune molecules like cytokines after a major exam. And they found the stress of test taking markedly affected negatively the body's immune cell distribution and its ability to fight disease. So, if you're going to be in med school, you're going to be in any program, we're going to have stresses. I think the takeaway is to realize, these stresses do impact my immune system, but to be able to say, okay, the test is over. My day at work is over. It's to break that cycle and say, now I'm going to go home and have dinner with my family. I'm going to go home now and I'm going to watch a comedy on television and make me laugh. It's about not carrying that test with you all day long. So you have different cycles of relaxation and stresses, so it's not long term. Okay, number 4, eat more healthy fats. We used to have a big thing in our country, don't eat fats, but there's a lot of great fats that you can eat. Avocados, olive oils, those kinds of things. So much of our brain is made of fat. So make sure that you're including something on a daily basis that helps your fats, because it actually nourishes your immune system. We talked about probiotics a little bit to have a happy gut flora, to help that garden. So fermented vegetable foods, like fermented vegetable juices, just foods and a probiotic. And you can overdo this. So if you have some kind of bug in your gut and you're eating too many fermented foods, you can get a sense of bloating. So you don't have to overdo these things. Your body wants some, but more is not better. So find that balance for you with your gut. Again, we talked about movement. Engage in some kind of movement. It doesn't have to be crazy for hours for a day. Most people only have a limited amount of time in a day to do some kind of movement. So just find something, and then they say, well, how often? Well, it doesn't have to be every day either. Maybe 4, 5 days a week, whatever you can fit into your schedule that you can feel good about. Well, number 7, you can reduce your toxin load. You can do that in many different ways. If you do number 6, engage in movement, you're reducing your toxin load. So these are not hard things to do. Sometimes I think we make things too hard. So a lot of these tips, remember and find the simplicity in really nourishing and supporting your body and your immune system. So drinking water. A lot of people go all day long, they'll have a couple sips of water, etc. Again, that's another easy way and cheap way to help release your toxins. You can do detoxes. You don't have to be crazy. Again, there can be some simplistic ones. You can do liver support. You can do a lymphatic detox. You can get a massage, right? You can do a lymphatic massage. So these types of things, you can do infrared saunas. These kind of simple things can help you to reduce your toxin load because we do accumulate them on a daily basis. So it doesn't take much to release them if we're working on a regular basis. But if we don't do any movement, we don't drink water, we're all stressed out, we don't get any poor sleep, over time, then that toxin load really starts to build up. So if we're aware of it on a weekly basis, then we don't allow the body to really build up that excess where we're going to run into problems. The next thing you can do, number 8, is a thymus rub. Now your thymus is in the middle of your chest. If you just kind of put your hand in the middle of your chest and just rub there, that's called a thymus rub. I learned that years ago from a South African medical doctor I worked with. And you don't do it for long periods of time, maybe a couple of times a day, in the morning and the evening time. You just rub that for about 30 seconds to a minute, and actually can help your immune system. Now, number 9 is supporting your respiratory system. With all the craziness going on today, the respiratory system is really one of, I think, the most vulnerable ways that people take in inhalants and get the viruses, bacteria, etc., right? Because we breathe things in through our lungs and through our noses. And that's commonly one of the easiest ways for the barrier breaches to be broken is through our respiratory system. So we can use some of the other codes that are on the Healing Solutions website. Beth has some free codes on there for viruses and to support your respiratory system in of itself. You can use the immune code that I just gave you. There's a variety of different ways that you can support your respiratory system. Another one I keep talking about is movement. If you allow that movement, that exercise, which increases oxygen utilization, it improves blood flow. Those things are a great way to help that immune system, your respiratory system specifically, in moving things through so they don't get stuck there. And last, number 9, whoops, I apologize for the typo, I have 2 number 9s. Don't overlook the power of your emotional life and relationships. It was a study in the Psychosomatic Medicine, exciting title, but they found women who had difficulty establishing close relationships had lower activity in their natural killer cells. So it really can be amazing what our emotions can do to support us or kind of beat us up. Now that really was an amazing study. And we're all going to we have stressful relationships, we have positive people in our life, we have negative people in our life. And that's just the way it is. But we can really foster those positive relationships in our life because that alone can really help our immune system. So just have an awareness of who you spend your time with, what kind of activities you're doing. Again, we're all going to be exposed to coworkers, family members that stress us out, but there's also positive people in our life that can help feed us and nourish us. And so think about that when you're spending time with the people that you love, that are supporting you and that you support back, because that's actually a good way to support your immune system. Let's talk about some supplements. A lot of people love supplements. So let's talk about some of those. Obviously a multivitamin. I love trace minerals. There's many liquid trace minerals out there. You can buy a company called Trace, I think. But there's several companies that are making liquid trace minerals. I love those. Multivitamins are harder to find in liquids than the trace minerals, but those are a great place to start. Vitamin D, that's pushed so much today, especially with the K2. Studies are showing that people with vitamin D deficiencies are 11 times more likely to get a cold and flu, while supplementing with vitamin D can reduce colds and flus by 42%. Now, K2 they found is very helpful. There's a liquid vitamin D K2 by Orthomolecular that I love, and I really recommend that highly to people. It's a great way to get your vitamin D, and I'm amazed. I live in Austin now. I moved from the Midwest several years ago, and I thought that people here would all have great vitamin D levels. Not true. It's even in the sunshine states that most people have a low vitamin D level. So it's one great way that you can really support your immune system. The third supplement is buffered vitamin C. I think everyone pretty much knows how well vitamin C has, what kind of impact it has on the body. Long-term studies have shown 500 to 1,000 milligrams throughout the day. Now, there's an IV clinic in my office, and so people are coming in and doing huge amounts of vitamin C. And there's different opinions about that, but just taking 500 to 1,000 milligrams throughout the day can have a great impact on your immune system. The fourth one is zinc. You can get in some of your foods like seafood, oysters, red meat, pumpkin seeds. Those are all great sources of zinc. And typically, if you're going to take a vitamin, mineral, a trace mineral specifically, it's going to have zinc in it. So instead of trying to buy like 10 things, I try to recommend things to people where you can get the most of these things into a lesser number of supplements. So zinc has some great properties. It helps the digestive system, actually. There's so many good properties for zinc. The probiotic, I've talked about it many times throughout today, but I thought this was interesting. A couple brands that offer several species for gut bacteria is kind of my suggestion versus trying to get the highest number of bacterias. Try to get the most species and a wide variety. Excuse me for a moment, I'm gonna take a drink of water. The lactobacillus, I'm gonna butcher this name, plantaruma, and spore forms of bacillus are some of the best types of probiotics for immunity. The lactobacillus family typically is in most probiotics that I see. Spore forms of bacillus aren't always, but sometimes. Just one caution, people who just take bacillus can have some problems long-term because they're throwing their gut off just by taking it. So I do suggest rotating probiotics through. One good type of spore form is megaspore. It's got some great variety of probiotics, but it's a spore form, so it's a little bit different type of probiotic. So you could use a spore form for a while, go through a bottle, and then switch off and go to a different type of probiotic with lactobacillus in it. So again, it's just giving your gut a different variety and different species to build you up. Number 6 is fish oil. I like the cod liver oil with lemon. A lot of people find it absolutely disgusting, but again, it's a liquid form, so I like it. Besides the fats, the cod liver contains additional A and more D for added protection. So whatever your favorite way is that you can get in fish oil, that's highly recommended and very beneficial for your immune system. Now, number 6, I did the number thing again, I apologize. The last one, so for natural antivirals with immune-enhancing effects, there's so much stuff out there. You got the astragalus, the green tea extract, the monolaurin types of products. We use colloidal silver, grapefruit seed extract. All those are great antivirals with immune boosting effects. The one thing I'm going to say about it is sometimes people will take some of these things for months at a time. And again, you're going to find different opinions about it. But that's why I like to test the body to see, well, how long does your body and my body need a specific product for? I've got people that would take it for the entire flu season the last several years. I don't know whether that's a good idea or not, quite honestly. But my suggestion is if you need something antiviral, if you need to take something for more than a few weeks, there's probably another underlying issue that needs to be addressed. So the body can adapt and get used to some of these products. So one thing I'm going to say too is sometimes I think it's good to take a supplement fast. So a lot of people are taking so many supplements and the body needs a break too. So I know what compounding pharmacist I work with, once a quarter, he takes a supplement fast for 5 days every month. Obviously, if he's taking prescription drugs, etc., he stays on those. But for the majority of the other supplements, your body will like a break once in a while. So just remember that all of these things you put in your body has a consequence for good and sometimes negative. So just be aware that it's good to rotate things sometimes, and everything sometimes can do good things, but also a break is also necessary. All right, now these antivirals, you can mix them together too. If you're not quite sure, I mean, you could try 2 of them, or you could take one for a week and then rotate to the next one. So it gives your body just a little different preview of a different type of antimicrobial product. All right, so basically the immune system really is amazing. Again, we can't touch it. I mean, you can kind of saw it's a big network. Just remember how powerful your own immune system is. And it's caring for you. It's just crucial to your mind and body. I think there's an added sense of empowerment that comes from understanding your own immune system as your protector, and how you can trust in it, and how you can support it in doing its daily work. Now, it's not saying you're never going to get sick, because it's not true. There's actually a purpose in the process of getting sick. We talked about the antibodies earlier, but it's more about just acknowledging and ultimately knowing that your immune system is looking out for you and helps you to take good care of yourself. All right, I'm going to give you one more code. And this code is to help reset your immune pathways. So if at some point they're getting off from just different stresses, physical or non-physical, this will help to reset and put all your immune pathways back online again. All right, I'm going to wait a couple seconds. This one's a little bit longer than the last one. So again, I will read this through 2 times. Give you all a chance to get it. Okay, here we go. It's EB, IF, SH, G50, SH, G50, SH, EB, E, G50, SH, IF, E, MF, LF, liver, G50, SH, E, G50, SH, G50, SH, EB, E, G50, SH, IF, OE, A, C, 9G. Don't worry, I'll go over it again. UN, SH, UN, chakra pattern 2 times 2. You can read it 3 times a day. Okay, let's go over from the beginning. Here we go. EB, IF, SH, G50, SH, G50, SH, EB, E, G50, SH, IF, E, MF, LF, liver, G50, SH, E, G50, SH, G50, SH, EB, E, G50, SH, IF, OE, A, C, 9G, UN, SH, UN, chakra pattern 2 times 2. Now again, you can read this as many times as you want. We just recommended it. Read it 3 times through, about 3 times a day.
3 times. 3 o'clock.
Okay, let's get to the end. Thank you so much for listening. We made it through the story. So tell me about any questions that you might have had. You can chat them. Actually, I'm going to ask that you chat them. A couple of things while we're seeing if there's any questions. Again, if you need further help, if you think you've got something going on with your own immune system, you're struggling with something that you're just not sure what to do about, you're concerned about, the stressful situations we're all living in, go to our website, healingsolutions.com. Call one of our practitioners if you're not already working with somebody. And there's an excellent team of people on there to really walk you through some of this stuff that might be helpful for you. Upcoming webinars, Kaylani, if you want to learn more about this work, she's teaching how to self-muscle test. It's an invaluable tool. And she's going to be doing that in August. And then Tom is going to follow up with the advanced seminar in September. So to find dates of those, go to our website and go under events. And you'll be able to find, we have a calendar of some upcoming things if you're interested in doing those.